Hello. Let me get myself situated here. Start talking in a second. Resize these windows. Alright, gonna do that. And then move that over there. Maybe one day I'll get one of those Steam Decks. Oh, my doggy is tripping. My doggy is. That's why I moved to the back room, so I don't have the doggy. And we got Jeremy Borno. Hello. Cool. Okay. Yep. And okay, here we are. Welcome. This is the Black Ponderer. I'm Neil Trotter. Yep, use a philosophy channel. We talk about philosophical texts, and I think my doggy. I wonder if I could pivot my camera. No, he's about to leave. Okay. Yeah, and so oh, hello, buddy. alone. You try and move away from him, and he comes to you. Yeah, so yeah, that we read philosophical texts here at the Black Ponder, in case you're new, or if you are, tuning in for the first time, you're like, what the hell's going on here? Yep. So that's what we do, philosophy text videos, but then sometimes we do these live streams. Actually, we've been doing live stream for regularly for a year now, so it's not nothing to do anymore. And this topic, and these are more like we just pick a topic and we roll with it, as opposed to my more normal videos where I just focus on the text. We just talk about a topic. And today, what I wanted to talk about was a magazine that I really like. I really like, that is now defunct. Too bad, so it doesn't exist anymore. But I really like this magazine. It's called Bitch magazine. It's a feminist magazine. You would think like, huh? Isn't that word derogatory? It's like one of those concepts where people will take a word that's an insult and try and claim it. And I don't know if the B word, if that has been completely has happened, but I think it can be used in powerful ways, and this is one of them. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of reflect back on this magazine and talk about my I don't know, my history with it, and because I really liked it, and it was a shame when it like discontinued. Talk about that too, how that just happened out of kind of. For me, it just kind of happened out of nowhere. Like, what's going on? What's going on? All right, let me just see here. Okay, cool. We're rolling. I gotta check these levels. Don't wanna. Okay, I think we're good. Okay, here we go. Okay, and then okay, now I see the chat. What's up? I'm a little familiar, but with this magazine. Okay, I'll clue you in, or like talk about it. I'll just show you some examples. Just show you a bunch of them. That's very provocative. Right, pleasure. You know, uh, plastic. I don't know. I mean, they have the topics, revenge. I have so many of these. I used to be a subscriber. It was cool back in the day. Now, okay, so let's talk about like I just ask the audience, or just maybe you can think about it like you've heard the word feminism, and I think about the very first time you heard that word, feminism or feminist. Well, the first time you ever heard that word, like maybe it could have been like somebody talking shit about feminism, like critiquing it badly, like, oh, this back ass, ideology, or women are just going off the rails about how men treat them badly. A lot of people encounter feminism first that way, right? Or maybe you've did it more positively. Maybe you've actually seen, saw a video, a documentary of a feminist, and maybe that's how you learned it. You just look back and you think like, when did I first encountered feminism? For me, I first encountered feminism in it was one of those, what was it? Like, it wasn't like a drugstore. What was it? It was like one of those convenience stores in downtown. A lot of these downtown areas, they have those convenience stores, and they got magazine racks. I don't know if they that might not be a thing anymore. I mean, this is when I was a teenager, and I feel old. But yeah, magazines were more of a thing when I was a teenager. Yeah, they had magazine racks, and they would always have this magazine. Which maybe I'm kind of lucky that they had this magazine. I would always go there to get video game magazines, like Game Pro or Game Informer, or like what was another one? Game Fan. They used to have it. Now, like video game magazines, that's like a thing in the past. It's like you could just look online and you can see it. But yeah, that's what I used to do. But I always would see this magazine. And then what is it? And then Jeremy says, I can't remember the first time I grew up with the idea of gender equality. Oh, okay, that's cool. Yeah, you're definitely maybe in the minority there. Because I know I grew up in a place was like people thought, oh, feminism, that's just some, yeah, it's just a waste of time. It's just people complaining about stuff that doesn't matter. It's like people whining. That's kind of where I came from, where people was talking. Even a lot of like, I sadly, even a lot of women that are girls that I grew up with would say, man, these feminists, they just need to get laid. I remember one of them girl I was hanging out with, that's what they said. Oh, those they just need to get laid. Like, but that's some conditioning, some patriarchal conditioning. But this was back when I was a teenager, right? So anyway, uh oh, I keep I keep disconnecting and reconnecting. Oh, that sucks. I wonder if it's just because I'm so far away from my modem. I'm not that far away. I'm gonna say. Do I have? What if I do this? That's the best one I got. So I'll keep it there. Yeah, you might see me popping in and out. I'm sorry. What are you gonna do? It's the internet's gonna internet. Okay, so yeah, and just one day, I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna pick it up, and plus, like the title. I mean, come on. I mean, that's a huge, huge. I mean, come on. Like that was definitely intentional. You just see this, and that word, and you're like, oh, I mean, I got it. Just draws your attention. Now it's an offensive word, but but it's a feminist magazine. So it's kind of weird, back then it was kind of counterintuitive. Like, I don't understand. You're using a derogatory word for women, but you're is a magazine that's supposed to be woman empowerment. Okay. So it's intriguing. It's intriguing. All right, it's intriguing. So I just picked it up, and this is in the magazine store. Now this, I'm in the San Francisco Bay Area. I think this was the city of Oakland. So this liberal bubble. So these things. That's funny. Oh, you're not supposed to show your address ever on the internet. You know that, right? Fortunately, this is like my old address, so it doesn't matter. It don't matter. Don't ever show your address on the internet. But yeah, that's a rule of thumb. But that's my old ass address. I don't live there anymore. uh, yeah, so I picked it up and I was intrigued. Let me see. I think this was the first one. The title is for shock value on you. Well, you would think so. You would think so, but it's actually a pretty good title. It's not just for shock value, I would say. But yeah, I mean, let's not deny that that's not part of it. Yeah, we're not denying that. Yeah, it's definitely part of it. But it's just like the word queer, for example, which was used to be used as a derogatory term for people, and now queer people have taken that word and reclaimed it. So many words, gay used to be an insult, right? But not anymore. So it's kind of in that vein. I guess the N word is pretty different, right? Because it's not kind of the same. That's a little bit more complicated. Certain ways you can say the N word that's empowering, yeah, and only certain people can say it in certain contexts, right? Because I mean, I'm black and I could say the N, but I probably wouldn't want to say it in this context, right? Because it would just be distracting. Not, I'm talking about the hip hop Nigga. I wouldn't even say that. So it's a little bit more complicated, but the N word kind of is like that too, where we black people kind of taken that and kind of redone it, and now it's sort of kind of like this pride thing, but it's very complicated. But I think I guess the bitch is that kind of goes along that line of linguistics, where it's kind of a little bit more complicated, right? Right. They trying to take it's not as like straightforward as like a lot of like queer, for instance, which is kind of like, to me, like that word is no longer derogatory. You can try and use it in a derogatory, but I think it's just not gonna work anymore. I think they did a good job taking that word and like, no, this is actually a word of pride. Queer eye for the straight guy. Or like, I think they remade that show and I think it's just called Queer Eye. And, so yeah, I think this is the first one, and so each one, yeah, this is the first issue I had. But I mean, it was a long running magazine. I believe I was actually, I wonder when it first came out. I believe I was a kid, a child, like a little, not like below teenager, when this magazine first started running. But and I can keep going. Maybe this was the first one. I don't remember, man. Well designed too. But yeah, I looked at it and I didn't know really what at the time. I grew up like most people with that whole you know hyper patriarchal, like heteronormative type of upbringing, which is like the default, right? So I'm also one of these kids who are just like, oh yeah, feminism, that's just, it's kind of a waste of time, just people complaining. But I didn't really give it much thought, right? I just kind of just accepted what everybody was telling me, and you gotta be careful about that. If you don't think about the things people are telling you, or you grow up in the world and you never like, not even just question, just even just like think about it. So a lot of people don't even think about it. They don't even get, you should question your points of view, but some people don't even get that. They just don't even like think about like what is this, like feminism, like what does it even mean? Right? It's just like, so I was like, I'm intrigued, let me look at it, and I looked it up, and it was pretty cool. It was pretty, lots of in-depth topics. Now, this magazine specifically is more about pop culture, and it's not very like highbrow like some feminists it kind of avoids that feminist academia type of like Judith Butler style gender theory. It kind of touches on that, but it's more for like the everyday person and is more relevant to pop culture topics, which is a great introduction because you'll read something like Gender Trouble from Judith Butler, or even like the theory of intersectionality. Like you actually read that law school college paper. Sometimes you get a lot of like feminist theory. It is pretty complicated, a little like academic, and so I think that kind of makes it hard to get into if you come at it, if you get introduced from that point of view. But with I think that's one of the highlights of this magazine. It kind of like breaks it down. Feminism kind of more for the layperson, and it kind of makes it relevant to everyday stuff, which was pretty cool. Now each one had a look, like most. Well, I guess not every magazine does this, but they had like a theme for everyone, right? What was this theme? It was travel, travel, and then what was this? Oh, wild, and then so their articles were all about wild, revenge, and then we had the facts issue. Let's pick wild. Let's see what that's all about. And this was fall winter 2021. Okay. And of course you got your ads, but these are these are like genuine sponsors. They're not like just random ads. And yeah, they would have like these fellowships where they would pick people in the field, whether it's like, just writers who are specialized in feminism, social critical thinkers, and pop culture analyzers and things like that. And they would offer, how the magazine worked is that they would give them like, okay, you're like, you can write for us. It wasn't just like, they would like revolve the writers. Like there wasn't permanent writers on this magazine. They would just keep a revolving like roster, which was pretty cool. I thought it's pretty cool, give people a chance. And it's so you have all these people who are all different kinds of women, right? Not just what they call it. You have trans women, you have non-binary women, or like there's so many different kinds, right? There's non-binary people who identify further, as feminine. There's like feminine non-binary people, and then there's like gender non-conforming people. And I learned a lot about this, like the various genders that people will embrace. And it's interesting because I knew people in my life growing up, because again, I lived in the San Francisco Bay Area. But this was still like the 90s or like the early 2000s. So a lot of these people that I knew who I grew up with, who were gender non-conforming, which we didn't have that kind of vocabulary back then. So, you would say like what, tomboy, things like that, but which would not really describe the person. Really, it's just like the best we had. So, I would share this with those of my friends, and they would see this and they'd be like, oh yeah, maybe I'm more, this describes me better, right? So that was cool. So it wasn't just like women assigned female at birth, right? It wasn't just those. It was like a variety of different women. Black trans people, and that was awesome. And of course, different ethnicities, Afro Latina, and so here we have a lot of like the pop culture stuff. Red Taylor's version. I'm not like a Swiftie, so I know. I mean, I think the Super Bowl is happening like right now, so maybe that's why. I wish I could say like give that as an excuse as to why I don't have like 100 people watching, but no, it's like the people, I don't have 100 viewers, period. But I just, because the Super Bowl, what is it? I think it's one of the Kansas City Chief quarterback is like is dating Taylor Swift. There's all this hubbub about, she's always stealing. It's crazy. But see, like this magazine would talk about that kind of stuff, but they would use a feminist lens. They got Spider-Man, No Way Home, the Indiana Jones Part 5. I mean, it was pop culture. But look at this, like they have that Nicktoon. I was too old by the time when I was watching Nickelodeon. It was like Ren and Stimpy, Doug, Rugrats. I think this is Nickelodeon, right? It's not Cartoon Network. But I think I was a little too old for this. But and she's apparently like, you can she has a little feminist aspect to this character, and they would kind of showcase that, which was cool. Let's keep going. No Man's Land, revisiting the dream of a female utopia. That's cool, right? And so the theme of this magazine is wild, right? And then what else? Ooh, look at this. Freedom fighters, are better days ahead in Palestine. The issue of Palestine has been just a thing throughout decades, right? This is 2021. I mean, it's not that long ago. but yeah, they're talking about that. Inside the growing movement, anti-lawn movement, right? That's what I'm talking about. I don't like lawn care. I don't like lawn care at all. But for example, let's look at this for example, right? maintaining a lawn. What's that all about? I always thought, and this article goes into the how it's like, lawn care is actually pretty environmentally unfriendly because you got to use so much water, and then you're constantly cutting it, so using all this energy. And why don't we just let our lawns just be wild? Because that's the theme of this. Just kind of just let it grow. Like, why does it always have to be kept like this? And you might say, like, well, that's good because you're keeping your property nice and clean. But it's like, by what standard do you is clean and kept? Right? And then they talk about how, like, lawn care is kind of representative of our our desire to control nature and conform it, like kind of like terraform it to a standard, kind of like a bending of will. Like we're bending the environment to our standard, to our will, right? Which is kind of, then it starts talking about, that's kind of like colonialist. When you really think, I mean, it really gets deep into it. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. And then you start equating that with, like, how we equate nature to, like, the feminine, or like when we say Mother Nature, right? And then so, like, the conquest of nature is similar to how the society equates the conquest of the feminine. As females, the female is subordinate, right? Just like nature is subordinate to, like, the conquest of man. It's always making it. So it's like literally like when we look at, like, how we spend so much of our resources maintaining our lawns, it's kind of like this colonial, like, patriarchal thing. So they would get into topics like that. And I just found that very interesting, and we can just keep going further. Pick another one. Let's see if I get one that looks pretty cool. And all of them had they had really good designs. So it wasn't just articles, it was like artwork. What's this going on here? Oh, I think a really good one was this one. The sick. As you can see, I have a lot. You had sick, right? That was the theme. And it's just deep people dealing with chronic illness, and that whole thing, and not yeah, mental health, as well as just like healthcare in general, which is a horrible thing in like many parts of the world, but the country where I'm from, the United States of America, it's pretty horrible. Our healthcare system, and you'd have these quotes, right? Sickness isn't just disease; it's the absence of health, both individual and societal, right? So, society, right? That's pretty important. We're thinking, they're focusing on, like, well, you can't just think about it on the individual level. You have to also think about it on the societal level. Same thing, like, so you'd have these writers. They're not the same as that other magazine that I should, because they kept revolving writers, which was pretty cool. I thought pretty cool. Giving people a chance, fresh takes, and it's not just the writers, it's like the artists too. They have different artists. I mean, they even had like Animal Crossing. This is 2020 of March. I think that was like right when the pandemic, like, that's when shutdowns like first started happening, right? April or March. So I guess that's what this is about. Because we're like, when people started realizing, oh, okay, COVID-19 is like, this is a real thing that's really gonna mess us up. So that was timely. And again, we got this cartoon character. So they would come from, but it's like from a feminist perspective. So you got the pop culture reference. Let's see here, and then one of the things, I'll bring this up later. They were very particular about, like, ads, like, they're like, we don't accept like any ads. We got sponsors who we believe in, and that's who we take. And so the funding of this magazine was purely based off of, primarily membership, right? Like, you would subscribe and become a member, and that's basically how they would make money. They didn't make money like most magazines off of like advertisers, and to be honest, like that's why they're not around anymore. They tried to make it work, but it just didn't happen, unfortunately. Look at that bitch list. Feminist phase from our feminist phase. What is this? Oh, this is just like, it's not only music, it's books, it's television, Grey's Anatomy. It was pretty cool because a lot of this stuff I don't like. I don't really watch modern television nowadays, but I was able to like know a lot about it because I would read about it, read critique about it. So I'd be able to be in these conversations where people would talk about the latest movies or the latest TV shows, even though I didn't even watch the show, but I was able to have these intelligent conversations about it because I would read all these critiques about it. That's one of the cool things for me about this magazine. Like, it kind of gave me this shortcut. I didn't have to like binge watch a show to get caught up in the conversation because they would give you these critiques or these analysis of these shows, and they'd be very in depth. Let me go back. They'd be fairly in depth analysis, so I wouldn't even watch the show, but I would know so much about the themes and like the character, not so much the character. I mean, they didn't spoil anything for you, but they would like cover the themes and like the subject matter and like the kind of like how it related to society. Because all these TV shows, they're coming from a place of there's some sort of social critique. Even like dumb shows, even those shows, like there's some sort of like critical critique in there, and they would like focus on that. And so that was that was one of the main reasons why I would read this magazine, because it gave me this shortcut where people would talk about the hot new shows, which I didn't watch, but I was able to like have discussions about them because it kind of gave me like this. I was able to leapfrog. And then here we got some more articles. Trial by firing. Are unions the cure for post-traumatic stress disorder? Things like that. A $2 lifeline. Astrology apps gives a new meaning to universal health care. Right? Because, and they would have interesting stuff like that because they would talk about astrology and how a lot of people use astrology as this method of like kind of like mental health well-being, but it was like a non-judgmental, because I'm not really into astrology like that, but I do know like a lot of people who are into astrology, and a lot of people who are into astrology, they're like, I don't really actually believe, but it's just this thing that I do, and it just gives me joy. All right, but they don't actually believe. So it's kind of like this thing that they do that they really get involved in, to the point where it's like, do you really believe? Not really. And so it's kind of like this way of empowerment, this kind of empowerment, even though it's based off of this fictional pseudoscience. But then you start diving into the history of astrology and like kind of the whole like feminist take on it. So it's interesting. It gave you like this very diverse point of view, which I appreciate it. It wasn't this like flip it like either, because some people accept astrology wholesale, like, oh, it's completely real, or they just flat out reject it, like that's absolute nonsense. Why would anybody in their right mind accept? But they were like a little bit more critical, and they're like, well, let's look at this and let's try and understand where this is coming from. And there's actually some good things about it, and there's some problematic things about it. Let's talk it through. Look, like there's a quote right here. Let me show you. While astrology should necessarily be used as a stand-in for clinical care, we could always lean into the soft form of relief astrology provides. You see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, they would give this nuanced, multifaceted, multidimensional, take on these subjects. And honestly, like this magazine really helped me understand critical theory, like understand really how to, I would read this as a teenager, so it really helped me, like, being able to like process or just um, understand things without like appreciate things from not just from various angles, but like understanding like although some things are like problematic or not there's some things you don't accept about something, but at the same time there are other aspects of something that are good. There's some good things, there's some bad things, and maybe I don't even want to use the words good or bad. It's kind of like things are nuanced, and I think that's a huge part of critical analysis or critical thinking, like kind of understanding things are complicated and nuanced, and there's not like this straightforward way of doing things. Right? Like astrology is a good example of that, where it's like there are a lot of people who are into astrology. They don't most of these people don't really actually believe in it, right? But they're just doing it, but they're doing it like hardcore because it gives them this like soft form of relief. Right, even though they still go to the doctor, and looking at it from that angle and seeing like the power in that, kind of giving them like the sense of empowerment. So this is interesting, and this is the main article. So you also had a bunch of photography in here and art, so it wasn't just writing, it was also art. So you got this photography going on, you got this arts. That's cool. Good grief, why does mourning have an expiration date? So we're talking about grief, we're talking about mourning, and like, does grief have an expiration date? So that's like a whole topic right there. Grief, nowadays we're it's kind of modern, which is kind of a little sad when you think about it, how we're starting really to take seriously what grief is, and how like when you experience severe loss you never really get over it, but there's ways of dealing with it where you can kind of like find a sort of contentment or some sort of like, okay, now I can like live a life where I can live with this, but it's always going to be with me, as opposed to like I can't live in this extreme loss. Like, how does that work, right? I'm saying all this stuff. It's just like it's really deep, and this magazine really did that. So it's and this is feminism, right? So it's not just like that classic one-dimensional critique of feminism about like, oh, men suck. Men, I hate men. Like, no, like, they're talking about grief, they're talking about astrology, they're talking about sickness. Does grief make us sick, or are we sick of grief? So I loved it. I'm not getting monetized here, so it's fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. So as you can see, it's got some. Better not show this too much. They might take it down. I don't know. But I'm not getting monetized, so that's fine. But yeah, it's an explicit magazine too. Make pride accessible. And of course, they got like, here we go. Unsafe refugee built in ableism in queer spaces. So we got refugee, ableism, queer. I mean, 3 different kinds of identifiers, right? So of course now we're getting into the realm of intersectionality, which can be very highbrow and academic, but they make it accessible. Why? Because they rooted in like an actual person. Right? Like this is a real person that's dealing with all three of those things. She's a refugee. She's got dealing with disability situations and mobility. Yeah, she's dealing with mobility access, and she's queer too. So tying all that together, that's how you really make kind of bring these issues to light. Is you like you get real people who are dealing with these things and you let them describe their experience to you. Okay, gay rights parade. Photograph of marchers holding a sign for disabled gay rights at the San Francisco Gay Day parade, alongside a marcher with a cane and marchers in wheelchairs. And this is 1977. Yeah, cool. And it's just well designed. LGBTQ people span the gamut of their identities and issues, so excluding any portion of the community is an inclusivity failure. Right? Intersectionality. Here we have, what is this? Intimate access. Okay, what is this? On poetry, purpose, thriving with HIV, and blackness as home. Oh, so again, we got like multi forms of oppression, like racism and ableism, and probably like homophobia too, right? Yeah. Smith, who is black, queer, and publicly living with HIV, is unapologetic about choosing to live in their truth, both on social media and within their work. These intersections, right, these intersections, let me get some more light in here. Blackness, queerness, and being HIV positive are all part of an existence that many black queer people suffer under. Notice many. It's not just, this isn't like a small sector. This is many. The multiple systems of oppression, often creating the impossibility of surviving or sustaining a feasible quality of life. Yet Smith continues to rise, refusing to be disregarded as just another black statistic. See, that's what I'm talking about. And this is an interview. It's an interview. I mean, that's some depth. Yeah, I'm fighting alongside my diagnosis like I'm a bad bitch. And this is what he's saying. I don't care about white people, truly. I mean, you'd speak their truth. I mean, you would have to read it to know the context, but I'm sure because this white people probably telling them, you don't deserve this, you don't deserve that. Why are you here? Get out of here. And it's like, I don't care. I'm gonna take my space. And it just keeps going. Let's look at another magazine. Oh, how much time we got? Okay. We got plastic. That's the theme. And this is probably environmentalism. Right? Valuing appearances above social change creates a system where nothing changes, no one wins, and everybody is replaceable. Okay, when we care about appearance over like social change, yeah, bad stuff happens. We'll just fly through this right quick. This is 2021. What's going on? Yeah. Financial advice ignores the shared reality of debt, right? Because you learn about these things. I was just talking about this the other day about, people trying to teach you about like Wall Street and like investment and like buying stocks and bonds and things like that. Or like, building a portfolio and all, and like IRA, but it's assuming like you have disposable income. Like it's assuming you have intergenerational wealth. Like most people don't have the disposable income to buy stocks. Right? And it's sad because people assume like, oh, anybody can buy stocks, anybody can do it. It's like, no, actually, not everybody can do that. Literally, because the stock market is variable. Of course, they'll say, they'll throw out this thing about like, well, there's the trend line in general. The stock market goes up, so you might lose some at some point. But eventually you're gonna gain. But the thing is, like, you're thinking long term. Like, most people don't live in long term. Like, most people live paycheck to paycheck, right? So they can't like wait on this long, like the multi-year trend, right? But financial advice ignores this, right? Because it's only thinking about the rich, the elite class, the well-to-do class. They're not giving advice for like people who are, lower wage income. Right? There's not only the stress of finding a fulfilling career, but of finding something that will pay enough to cover loan payments and basic living expenses, right? Because, financial advice is for people who don't even pull out loans. Like, maybe their relatives are paying for their college already. I know, I have friends who like their parents paid for, or their grandparents paid for their college. So this applies to them, but like most people that I grew up with, we had to pull out lots of loans. So that's where our disposable income is going, paying back all the loans for a living. And it's college, or maybe you got to buy a car to like go to work, and so now you're paying that car note. So what about that? If and that's what that's about. Oh, I don't even know. Toys R Us unlocking trauma through classic trinkets. Oh, interesting. Uh, okay, okay. Let's see. Oh, I think this is is that the cover? The audacity of confidence? No, it's not. Is it imposter syndrome or is it patriarchy? Oh, that's okay. It's the feature. It does make you question yourself for a moment. It puts you in the frame of mind that maybe you can't do this. Is it imposter syndrome or is it patriarchy? Right? Because the imposter syndrome is like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Or are you saying that because it's literally people telling you you're not good enough? Like you shouldn't be here because of, you're a woman or you're black or something. And so is it really imposter syndrome, or is it like society telling you shouldn't be there, right? So yeah, I mean, that's what's going on here. It should not be any surprise to people that women of color are especially susceptible to imposterism feelings, right? Because of what I just was saying. I must go through that self-talk because of the stereotypes that someone like me isn't capable of doing great things. Right, right, right. Yeah. And so it's kind of a little bit related. Let me just go back here and say like, so my full name is Neil Trotter. I say that in the beginning of most videos. My mom, she said she said, I named you that because it sounds very white. And so I wanted people to, before they even knew or saw you, I wanted people to give you a chance. So she intentionally gave me like a white sounding name. And it's funny, like when I go to job interviews and, they're like Neil Trotter, and I show myself, you can see the shock in their faces. They're like, oh, I was not expecting. or whatever, go to the, and I mean, it never fails. So, they're expecting somebody when you go to seek this job or whatever. And then they see who you are, like, I was not expecting this. Because, the person you look like, people assume you're not capable of doing great things. I get it, but I'm sure if you were a whole nother level. See, I'm a dude, so I got that male privilege. Right. ready for those jellies. The shoe that became both cheap and luxury status symbol. And this, I remember this one. I remember reading this one. It's about, oh, maybe it's not about that. But I remember I read an article about these shoes that were, were very famous in black communities. Like they were plastic sandals. Yeah, I remember girls would wear these in the 90s a lot, black girls. Um, they were like see-through. I think that's what it is. Like these jelly sandals, right? Um, and then they would wear them because they were cheap, but they look kind of cool. They kind of like black girls claim. That's how a lot of black women. That's how they do. They'll just take something. I've seen this. They'll just take something and they'll just like, this is mine and I'm making it cool. and so that happened, right? And of course, like you got the appropriation, right? You got the appropriate, like, all of a sudden white people or, mainstream media sees this and like, oh, we can like adopt this and like turn a profit off of it. So then, a lot of white people started wearing them, and then the price jumps, right? And this is a phenomenon that happens. It's got the co-opting of black culture, and how like capitalism plays a huge part of that. Like you remember, like, man, I bought those shoes for $15, and now they're like $60. What the hell happened? It's the same damn shoe. And I see all these white people wear it. Like before, they would never wear those shoes. They would think they're too ghetto, but now it's like cool to be ghetto, right? Right. And so that's what this article is about, and that's a very feminist kind of topic. I grew up surrounded by glamorous burlesque dancers and circus performers, and they each had a pair of glittery jelly flats. I remember thinking they were the oddest, coolest, most unique shoes, and that they went with anything. So I got a pair. We're talking about burlesque dancers, circus performers, right? People you don't, you look at, many people don't aspire to be, right? They're wearing it and they're making it cool, and then all the people who talk shit about them, they're like, ooh, I'll wear this now, and then they'll deny the people that the originators. They'll deny them the thing that they originated. It's a famous phenomenon. Kind of like here in, it's the same thing. Kind of like here in Memphis, where people worship Elvis, right? He's so cool. But Elvis is known for like just taking music that was made by black people and just like performing it on stage. It was, a lot of the songs that he made that blew him up were just like songs that black people already made, but because he was white, they became popular. And it was in fact a co-opting of black culture, that kind of thing. And so they talk about these things. It was a great magazine. Yeah, it was awesome. I really liked it. So what happened? What happened to Bitch Media? Why did it go away? Well, like I was saying before, the magazine was like, we are not gonna be like other magazines. We're not like gonna just take any generic advertisers, and we're not gonna accept advertisers that pay big money, because we are socially conscious. Right? The problem with that is, okay, now you're not dealing with that much funding. It's very difficult to produce a print magazine. It's very expensive, right? So they're like, you know what? We're just gonna try our best to see if we can just pay this with. We're gonna have a few sponsors who we feel that who we see that are doing great work, who also embrace feminism. But that wasn't enough. So they're like, we have a membership program. And I was part of that membership program. I was like, I was a subscriber, and I paid my monthly fee, and it was great. They would even put the name. They stopped doing that because they had too many. Let's see. Was it here where they just stopped doing that because they just started having too many damn? But they used to put the names of the people at the end of the magazine. Yeah, I gotta look at like a really old one. Oh, 2018. Damn, that's really old. What is this? Ghosts? Okay. Yeah, they stopped doing it then. Huh. Where's that travel one? I think the travel one had it. Maybe not. No. My name was on a few of them. It was on a few of them because I would donate. I wouldn't donate. I would just pay for the service. And they give you a nice little. I got this cup. I guess this is a memorial now, or this is like a. What is it? It's probably not very valuable. It's like a keepsake. They give you this mug. That's cool. A tote bag, which I still use. It's kind of faded though, but. And it's funny because they used to call. If you remember, you were part of the beehive. They were part of the beehive, and that. I think this was actually before Beyonce took that term. So I think even before Beyonce, it was like those are my fans are were part of the beehive. But I think there was this other feminist subscription service or like this magazine or I think it was like a website. I think it was called like Bustle or something like that. And they claimed like, oh, you're part of the beehive. So they had a whole like back and forth with them. Like we originated the name first. No, we did. And so I think eventually like media decided to change. Like, you know what, we're just gonna capitulate or something. I forgot. That was like a little bit of a drama, which was kind of funny. But then I think later Beyonce was like, yeah, I'm fans of mine. They're Beehive members. But by then, this magazine was on its way out. It just didn't make enough money. Now, it was crazy because I didn't even know it was defunct for the longest time. One day I just thought to myself, I haven't gotten the magazine for a long time. Like, it's been several months since I got a magazine. Like, I wonder what's going on. It just occurred to me. Now I looked them up and I was like, oh, they don't exist anymore. Like, they could have sent out a notice or something. I mean, damn. They didn't even send out like a notice or a notification. Like, we regret to inform you that we no longer are able to produce this. I mean, they could have did that at least. Damn. I was a little surprised. I'm like, y'all just cut. And I had to like check. I was like, were they still pulling money from me? No, they didn't. They didn't pull money from me. So I don't know. I was just like, y'all didn't have like you could have had like a party or something, like a last hurrah, like maybe a final issue or a farewell issue. None of that. I was like kind of like, damn, y'all just kind of left. No going in the sunset for y'all. I think they should, they were really attached to print magazine format. I was too. They would give these surveys that said, what do you like most about our organization? And I would always click like, I love the print subscription service. And I think a lot of people like that because these magazines look great. They look really awesome. They had digital versions too. But I mean, these print versions were awesome. But I'll tell you something. Like, if it was up to it, if they sent out a notice saying, "Look, we can't afford to print this anymore. We can only do digital," I would still be okay. I'd be like, you know what, that's fine. I'll still subscribe to you. Just no more print, just digital. That would have been cool with me. I mean, that would have been. Of course, print is cool and it's awesome, but it would have been fine. I don't know, man. I think maybe they should have By who though? I don't know what's going on behind the scenes, but I was like, why didn't y'all just do just pure digital? That would have been fine with me. I guess they wanted to like we pay our writers a certain amount, and if we can't pay them that amount, then we're just not going to continue the magazine. I guess that's what was going on. I don't know, I think they could have made some cuts. They could have been like, you know what, we gotta do digital only, and maybe even like, you know what, you gotta start selling out. Be like, I mean, we live in a capitalistic world. What can you say? Like, just we gotta accept a few more advertisers, so, or and then maybe be like, you know, some of the writers, we're just gonna have to prove pro bono, or like not pay you as much as we could. We're just sorry. You know, I think they would have still had some good quality. Um, I suspect maybe something else is going on in the background. Maybe like staff that was running it couldn't. I mean, now I'm just speculating. I'm just speculating. Maybe they had some issues, internal conflict was going on. I think that probably was part of it because they had a really good thing going on. This is a magazine. I mean, I don't know, maybe 10 years, probably, yeah, of course, definitely more than 10 years, I'm sure. Maybe like 20 or something, maybe more than that, because I just have the latest stuff. It's just sad. It really is sad because what a like a point in history. You know, this magazine had a huge impact on me. It made me a better person. Not only did it solidify my position as a feminist, which is, you know, cool, but also it just made me a better critical thinker. It actually made me a better philosopher. It really taught me how to think about things in more with more depth and more breadth. You know, really, you know, taught me how to look at things multifaceted and looking at things on a multi-dimensional level. Yeah, it's just too bad. But yeah, you know, it is what it is. And but yeah, I love this magazine, and I just wanted to just give a little personal retrospective of my history with the magazine, my personal history. And it's too bad it's gone because it's a great magazine. Wish it was still going, but you know, I guess all things must end eventually. I would have never, honestly, I thought this was just gonna. This is one of those forever things. Thought it would just keep going, man, but I was kind of shocked. I'm like, dang, y'all out. Oh well. Well, I just would like to thank you on this trip down memory lane for joining me on a little, yeah, personal retrospective. Um, yeah, it was kind of fun looking back. Going back to my early feminist days and my early, even I would say early philosophy days when I really started, because you know, that's why this magazine, I think this was actually the first issue I got. What is this? Where's the date? Yeah, May 29th, 2017. Does this have the names? Yeah, it does. It probably does have my name because it's probably too soon because I probably just joined. Just to double check here. But my name, no, because I just joined. I just subscribed, so it doesn't have my name, which is some of those magazines do. So I've been part of that history. That's pretty cool. Not that one though. But yeah, that's why this magazine also has a special place in my heart. Not just because it's feminist, but also this is when I started to, you know, really get into philosophy and really get into like critical thinking and like what they call that, like reading, like deep reading, like critical reading, not just like surface level reading, but really like close reading, right? When I started, and this really helped me, train me to do that. Yeah, I think I've been. It's too bad. I think I've been going in and out on the internet. It's just that's just what happens sometimes. My internet infrastructure here in Memphis, Tennessee, is not the best, but it's all good. So I'll see y'all next time, next week, hopefully. We'll just do another topic and it'll be fun. But thanks for going with me on this trip down memory lane. I'll see you later. This is the Black Ponderer, and then tune in next time for more philosophical thought.